Aloha, welcome back to the Anxiety Coaches Podcast. I'm your host and coach, Gina Ryan, and I'm so happy to be with you again today as we consider the many ways to bring your mind and body back to its natural peace and calm. In today's episode, I'm talking about untangling the anxiety trio. And by this, I mean your thoughts, your emotions, and your feelings. Now, this is part one because I had more information that I could fit in one episode. So we will conclude with part two in the next episode. I hope you'll join me there. So the difference between feelings and emotions and the impact of thoughts can be very nuanced, but is really significant, especially when it comes to managing our anxiety. Now, let's start off with emotions, and then we'll go to feelings and thoughts, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the role of all of these, but I want you to understand what each one is first. So emotions, they are immediate physiological responses, meaning emotions are automatic. They're instinctual responses to stimuli, and they're usually triggered by external events such as someone cutting you off in traffic or internal processes like thoughts or memories. Emotions are often brief but intense, and they occur in the body before we are consciously interpreting them. So it just happens. This is not conscious on your part. As an example, if someone startles you, you might feel immediately fearful or surprised. This is an emotion, and it's raw, it's physiological in that reaction. Your heart rate may increase, and adrenaline may even spike. Anxiety itself can be considered an emotion, triggered by perceived threats or stressors. It's the body's way of signaling potential danger, even if the threat is imagined. Now, feelings. Let's move on to the feelings. They are conscious awareness of the emotions. Feelings are the subjective interpretation or conscious experience of emotions. Once you become aware of your emotion, it becomes feeling, and it's influenced by your thoughts, beliefs, and your past experiences. And let me give you an example. If you feel the emotion of fear, and I know you are familiar with this, you might interpret it as unease or worry or even excitement, depending on the context. Feelings are more complex and long-lasting than emotions, and they shape how you react or respond to emotional stimuli. Someone may be feeling lingering unease or dread. Those are feelings after experiencing the emotion of anxiety. These feelings can stay long after the initial emotional response has passed, especially if reinforced by negative thinking patterns. And I know you understand the negative thinking patterns, and that's how we can keep that going. We can have those feelings stay long after the initial emotional response because of our thinking patterns. So let's talk about thoughts. Thoughts are mental processes that serve as the link between our emotions and feelings. It's the link between, like a bridge. They represent our beliefs, our opinions, our ideas that we have, and over time, our attitudes. How we think about an experience one that has evoked an emotional response, will feed the resulting feeling. So how we think about an experience will feed the resulting feeling. And as an example, maybe you're out hiking and you've crossed a long, narrow bridge while you were on this hike. You may have contemplated how difficult your hiking path was after crossing. Or you may have thought about how many other obstacles are going to be ahead of you. These thoughts lead to feelings, and they are leading to feelings of being afraid, possibly feeding your anxiety as one example. See how our thought went into the future about something negative maybe coming up, and that thought led to feelings, more feelings of being afraid and feeding our anxiety, as we talk about here, right? Putting another log on the fire, gasoline on the fire. Let's let that fire die out, right? That would be the better way. But I digress. So let's talk now about the role of thoughts in shaping our emotions and our feelings. Thoughts can directly trigger emotions. For example, if you think, what if I fail at this presentation at work? The thought might elicit an emotion of fear or anxiety. You don't want to fail. Thoughts act as a filter, often amplifying or even creating emotional responses to events or imagined scenarios. I hope you are getting this, how important your thoughts are. We pay a lot of attention to our feelings. We pay a lot of attention to our emotions. But where we are making a big impact is through our thoughts. Think of the thoughts as a filter. Thoughts influence how we interpret our emotions, which shape our feelings. A person might feel anxious, which is an emotion, and if their thought is, I can't handle this, which is common, that interpretation could lead to feelings of helplessness. On the other hand, you could think, this is challenging, but I've managed it before, could turn the same anxiety into a feeling of resilience. So, emotions are automatic, physiological reactions, such as anxiety, joy, anger. Feelings, they are the conscious, subjective interpretation of the emotions, such as unease, contentment, frustration. And thoughts are the cognitive processes that can trigger and shape both emotions and feelings. So I hope you can start to see how this can play into how you're dealing with your anxiety. Because we're going to have to start breaking the cycle. And I often talk about breaking the cycle either with our thoughts or with our body. And oftentimes people have a lot of trouble breaking the cycle of anxiety with thoughts because they've become so ingrained. Now, it's not always easy to break the cycle with your body either, but we start where we can. And I'm hoping that you will begin to see how important your thinking is and the idea that you can change a thought once you catch it, and that comes with practice, but we can begin to break the cycle. Recognizing the differences allows you to interrupt the cycle of negative thinking and emotional overwhelm. By becoming aware of your thoughts, you can begin to reframe them. You can move them in a different direction, even if all you do is question it and say, is that true? Or can I think a little bit differently. Because by becoming aware of your thoughts, you can reframe them, which can reduce the intensity of the emotion and change the resulting feelings. And this gives us control. This actually begins to empower us. Because once we realize that we can separate thoughts from emotions and feelings, we may feel more in control. Now, I know that what you're looking for when you're anxious is control because you feel powerless. You feel like everything is out of your control because you're usually in a situation that is out of your control. And many, many, many things in our lives are out of our control. But our thoughts are not out of our control, which means if our thoughts are actually playing a part in how our emotions and feelings are, we can begin to see we do have some control here. We are empowered. So again, once you realize you can separate thoughts from emotions and feelings, you may feel more in control. And this awareness gives you a choice in how to respond rather than being swept away down the wormhole by anxiety. There is so much that we can do when we are aware of what is going on. We often just think there's a problem, I'm broken, I need XYZ to make me better. Well, you're already great. You don't need to be better. You just need to know what's going on and where you have control and where you can make a difference. And you do hear me talk about changing and breaking the cycle with the body because so many people with anxiety are already too wrapped up in the head, right? We already think too much. We know how to overthink everything. And so sometimes using the route of thinking can be cumbersome. So we go to the body and we pay attention to the body and we pay attention to the breathing. These are places where we can interrupt this cycle because our mind and our body and our brain and all of our emotions and everything that's coming up is all connected. It's all one. But if we want to find that little place to interrupt it, the body can be helpful there. The breathing, the relaxing of the muscles, the movement, moving the energy, getting tired, sweating, getting in cold water, whatever. There are many different ways, and we talk about that on other episodes. But I often don't talk a lot about changing it from the thoughts because for many people, it can be cumbersome. It's like, oh no, we get too wrapped up in our thoughts. It's like when I try to talk about making the change from the body, and some people don't do well with the breath, right? If they try to control their breath, they become panicked with, am I breathing? Am I breathing too much? And then they start to feel dizzy. So maybe breath isn't right for them at that point in time. So what else can we do? We can relax the muscles. We can move the body. There's a lot of different ways to interrupt it, even still in the body without concentrating on the breath. And same with our thinking, with our mind. There are different ways we can go about this because you can pay more attention to your thinking when you see that your emotions and your thoughts and your feelings are not just one big bundle. You can see now that you had the emotion and it gave you a feeling. And what are your thoughts going to do with that? Are your thoughts going to take you down the wormhole, or are your thoughts going to empower you? And I want you to take the route of empowerment because now you have the information that it comes first, the emotion, then the feeling, and then the thoughts are going to decide what you do with all of that. And it takes practice. I'm not saying you're just going to be changing everything up in 5 minutes, but it's really worth the effort to notice. And of course, there are many different ways you can go about this, and I have the whole next episode to go over each of those with you, because I want you to really pay attention to the thinking now. I know you guys are ready for it. You can use your body anytime also. Try them both, because you know when you change your body and relax it, it sends that message to your brain that all is well. There's not a problem down here in the body. It's all relaxed, so the amygdala can stand down. But the same can go with your thoughts. If you do not continue thinking scary thoughts about the emotion and the feeling that you just had, if you can take it to neutral, you no longer feed the body with those stress hormones. It's always a feedback loop going both ways. The mind talking to the body and the body talking to the mind. So we will interrupt it wherever we can. And by recognizing the differences between thoughts, emotions, and feelings, we really can disrupt the automatic knee-jerk reaction that fuels anxiety. You can calm yourself more effectively and stay in control using things like mindfulness, reframing, grounding, and self-compassion. And with practice, these strategies, which I will go over with you in the next episode, will help you develop the resilience to manage anxiety in a healthier and in more productive ways. Like I said, in the next episode, I will share specific exercises and examples to make these concepts practical for you. I'll see you there in another couple of days. And now for today's quote. Feelings are much like waves. We can't stop them from coming, but we can choose which one to surf. And that's from Jonathan Martinson. I'll be back in a few more days with another podcast. Until then, be well and aloha.